What's up, good folks? So in this video message, I want to talk about something that was on my mind, and I feel is very important to mention. And that something is the topic of, you know, chasing after, the money. It's very common in our culture where people talk about, chasing a bag and getting that money, if you will, right? And, some people say, money is not everything. People say money is not everything, but it definitely, helps out with a lot of problems. And this is true. But anything that requires you to sacrifice yourself and your well-being and your health to obtain it is not absolutely worth it now, is it? Anything that you are chasing after or anything that you are trying to obtain that is going to hurt your health, that is going to hinder you, or is going to cause you a significant sacrifice of, your health or your well-being, is just it's not worth it. So, we live in a day and time where, the culture and media and even the music talk about, getting money or whatever, everybody chasing the bag. And, we obviously need money for survival. Some of us love money more than others. I don't necessarily have problems with people. I don't have problems at all with individuals who, who may love money more than me. I don't have any issue with it at all. We all have different desires, and but my whole message is that, trying to keep up with the status quo, and more specifically, people will say, go get that money, or, you chasing a bag, or, you getting that money or whatever. At what expense is it costing you is the question, right? Because, people promote and they glorify and praise people for, getting a bag, but they never really talk about and expose, you have to be someone who's doing your homework to know and to see some of these things. They never really talk about and expose what it took a lot of people to get, to a certain bag, right? When you are working so hard to where it is costing you your health, whether that is physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever, what have you, or it even, let's go to the extent of it costs you your life, that's not healthy at all. And anybody who is your friend, anybody who is supposed to be a friend of someone who tells them, and they are praising this person and encouraging this person, a person, to chase a bag and to continue to do the things that is hindering their well-being or is detrimental to their health, and they say, go ahead and get that bag, and it's really not good for you, that individual is not good for you. Like, it doesn't make you a good friend. And sometimes, with me just being really compassionate, sometimes we, do these things unconsciously, subconsciously, and unaware. And really, it's just us wanting to encourage our fellow man or woman, our friends, our family, the people that we love. We want to cheer them on. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there is a lot of things in the world and society and even in our culture that is just not good for us. So we really need to stop encouraging people to overwork themselves or to do things for attention and for gratification that is in turn becoming self-sacrificial, that is becoming a sacrifice to them, and in the end is very detrimental to their well-being and to their livelihood, to their whole being and their life. right? Because that's what we're seeing. Statistically, I've done my homework and it shows that statistically, the numbers for autoimmune diseases have skyrocketed. They say that the number one killer in the United States is high blood pressure and cardiovascular disease, hypertension, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, if you will. And not only does that come from your diet and your way of life, but it also comes from, your lifestyle, your connections, your relationships. And a part of your lifestyle is your stress, the stress factor. There are good stresses and good things that, are things that are good ways to stress the body, right? Whether that be mind, mental, or whether that be, physical. But then there's other life stressors that we don't talk about and that we don't stop to think about, that is very detrimental and is very much a hindrance to the well-being of humanity, of society. So for women to take on the role and to be hyper independent and to do, the things that men did before, and to not only do certain things and be hyper independent, but to do it overtime or to overexert oneself. And we have people that are praising us when you're absolutely burnt out. That's not nothing to be proud of. And it's not something that we should continue to glorify and praise people for, because at the end of the day, we're not a part of the solution. We're actually a part of the problem. Right? And again, the compassion and empathy that I have for folks, because we want to encourage one another and we want to support the people that we love. So I absolutely get it, because I support the people that I love and I encourage the people that I love, so the better parts of us want to do that. But we should really stop and think about whatever it is that we are encouraging. Are we encouraging something that is actually detrimental to the people that we love? Are we a part of the problem, or are we a part of the solution? Because people are running, men and women are running themselves into the ground. And for some people, this is a very sensitive topic. It's a very sensitive topic to myself. That's why, when something is on my mind, or I feel something is on my heart heavy, depending on what it is, it's something that I would want to talk about and express myself, express my feelings or my thoughts on it. And this happened to be one of those topics, or one of those thought, or something that I definitely wanted to talk about. There's that mindset, and there's these qualities, and there's this just, this way, it's like that boss mentality, that boss nature. By nature and in our DNA and in our mind, right? In our swag and just everything about us, especially the Black woman, right? It's like, you gonna tell me I can't do what? Or, you gonna tell me what? Like, oh, if it needs to get done, I'm gonna get it done. That's it's the type of mindset. That's the type of DNA that we have. You gonna tell a sister what? Has the highest statistic and ratings of entrepreneurship and bosses. So you want to talk about bosses for real, right? So we glorify and we praise our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our friends, our girlfriends for, being a boss, because I too myself have a boss mentality, and it's not even so much on a pride thing or an ego thing. If anything that I'm a flex for is because of the DNA that I have, being, who and what I come from, if anything, right? So there's that balance. So I said that to say I absolutely get it. I absolutely get it. Like, you know, you could tell anybody anything as far as, what you're going to advise them, right? But to tell a sister or to tell a black woman, like, that's like telling God not to, not to shine its rays, right? Not to shine the sun, right? That's like telling God not to, make the sun rise. But I guess this video message is just one of those messages where it's like, I want to put something on your mind, especially if it's not something that is being commonly talked about. And even as I am advising one or some, I even have to remind myself of this because I too, have a boss-like mentality. I too have goals, and being a hard worker and having goals and ambitions, and having obligations, all in all, just simply put, first and foremost, priorities and obligations. But even after all of that is considered, back to the main point in the message, after all of that is considered, and then you think about the things, what is the greater cost of what it is that you're doing? And we see time and time again what that greater cost is. As I said, autoimmune diseases is going up and through the roof. The rates of autoimmune occurrences of autoimmune disease, heart disease, stroke, and a lot of these, hypertension, a lot of these things come on because of, strenuous things and excessive stress. One thing that I learned, and I learned this because I like to work out, and I also like to do, strength training, and I like to run. But one thing I had to learn is, to slow down sometimes and to do things that are going to be less strenuous or is not going to stress my body as much, such as like meditating or doing yoga or just doing simple strength training instead of just going real hard, in the gym. But what I found out when I was doing my homework is that when you overexert the body, or when you, say for instance, do what I like to do, and you like to do high intensity interval training, your adrenals, it does something to your adrenals. Cortisol, your cortisol, it raises your cortisol levels. So by our natural human design in our bodies, cortisol has its function and its necessity, just like a lot of our other bodily functions. So we need cortisol for certain things, but then you have to have that balance, because you can do certain strenuous workouts and your cortisol can raise, and then it can help, and then your adrenals is good, you calm down and you're good for the day. But if you are pushing yourself too hard, as I said in a conversation with someone that is near and dear to my heart recently, everything that may be good for you doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best for you. What I mean by that is everything that is good should not be overused. So even if something is good for you, using it or doing it in moderation is actually wise, because just because something is good for you doesn't mean that you should overdo it. It can actually create adverse reactions, and it can actually be bad for you. So when we talk about cortisol, we talk about adrenaline and these different stress hormones, essentially is what it is. Stress can be good for you, but too much stress is not good for us, and it will break down the body. How do we know? Because science tells us so. The doctors have done the homework, they have done the research, and we know by the research that the research shows that too much stress and, negative life events, whether that is grief, whether that is loss, whether, that is the stress that comes from, you know, the hustle and bustle and daily tasks or work and your obligation and the family. And it's just so much. And again, encouraging one and cheering one on and cheering each other on, there's nothing wrong with that. But do we ever stop and tap in with one another, or even with ourselves, and say, how am I feeling? Or to the same people that you are cheering on and that you are encouraging and celebrating, asking them, how are you doing? Really, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is your mental health okay? Is your physical health okay? Oh, well, I have this ache, or I have this, or I have this ongoing condition, but I'm otherwise a healthy person. Well, what changed? And a lot of things, if statistics is telling to us that that there are rates of autoimmune diseases that are rising, and that heart disease and hypertension are the number one silent killers of Americans. What does that say about humanity and the way that our day-to-day lives, and how we praise and encourage one another? What does that say about the type of conversations that we should have, but also the interventions that we should have with people, so that we can encourage one another to be healthier, to prioritize our well-being, our mental, our physical, our spiritual well-being, to address whatever traumas that need to be addressed, and to rebuild the significant relationships with family, with friends, and prioritizing those things. You want to make money, and you want to save money, and you want to be money smart, and you want to be financially inclined and financially intelligent. All of those good, beautiful things, especially when we're talking about nation building. But then what about taking those trips that you want to take, doing the things that's going to make you happy, rectifying relationships in your family and with your friends that is going to help you heal your heart? If it is salvageable, if it is something that can be rectified, right? I talked with another person that is very near and dear to my heart. Actually, my big sis. And, we were having a conversation, and we were talking about, there's certain things that can be forgiven, and then there's some things that's just like sketch, or it can't be forgiven. There are so many things that can be forgiven when we talk about family, because of family. And if you're anything like me, where you come from a big family and you're the youngest of your family, family is prioritized, and you will do any and everything to rectify certain things, and to do what is healthy for the family, right? And do the things that is going to create a healthy relationship, a healthy dynamic with the family. When we talk about silent killers like stress and things, the doctors also teach us that when you talk about heart disease and the health of the heart and things, the heart center and the heart chakra, they teach us that prioritizing and healing relationships and your social networks, your friendships, your connections, and your family, the relationships that you have, is very important when it comes to your heart health. So that's another thing. We encourage each other to chase the bag. And do you, boo-boo? You know, we all have to survive, and the best of us, we on a mission to thrive. But what is the sacrifice? And what does that say about our health? And then not only the work that we do and the things, those stresses and things, but also taking the time and to be intentional about healing relationships. So this was a very genuine, heartfelt message that I wanted to, share, because I am aware that there is a lot of things that are taking place, and there's a lot of losses that are happening, and there are things that need to be talked about. There are things that need to be addressed, especially when it comes to women, men and women alike, but especially when it comes to women, because sometimes people are just taking on too much. Sometimes we are taking on too much. So, this message is just, it's a self-awareness message for myself, but then to also put something on your mind and to encourage you to just tap in with your people, and also to deliver a similar message to people that you love, in regards to the work-life balance, right? And what we are encouraging, right? And encouraging people to give themselves the permission to slow down, to tap in with themselves, to engage in self-care acts and do the things that are good for them, and the things that's going to sustain them, and the things that is going to preserve their life, your life, my life. Y'all be easy and have a good one. Ashe.